Thanks for coming to my doodle tonight. So, tonight I kind of had this idea that I wanted to do something from the desert. And maybe it's because I feel homesick. Maybe it's just because I like the desert, or maybe this time of the year just feels kind of like the desert between things. But here we are. And feel free to chime in if you want me to doodle something in, even if you think it's kind of silly. That's kind of what this is about. Sometimes you may tell me you want me to put something in that I don't know how to paint. And that's fun too. Because these times are for us. And not so much about me showcasing my talent or something. They're just a relaxing time for us to hang out and do something fun. I'm not really sure what kind of desert I want to portray. But here we go. I hope things have been good for you. And I hope that you've found some time to reflect in the middle of it all. I have certainly tried to find time to reflect and think about what I can learn from life in these little things. So I do have a day job, and it just picked up again this week. And that means I had to jump back into things that I had left untouched for more than a week. And one of the funny things about it was that my coworkers all said that they were either going to try to get things done, or that they were very sorry they weren't going to get things done this week. And it was amusing to come back and to hear pretty much everybody in the first meeting say, "What were we doing again?" when we left. I think this just, when this week at the end of the year happens, it's just like the sound of a big cosmic vacuum cleaner just turning on, and whatever you thought was important just kind of gets vacuumed up a little bit in the fog. At least for some people. In most of my jobs in my life, I guess, there were activities going on, whether I was working retail or waiting tables, delivering something, or what have you. There was always something going on around this time of year, but for those roles where people take vacation or there's a shutdown or something, it's always funny to hear how everybody seems to just forget what they were doing when they left. I know it's probably not the most relaxing thing to talk about. Work first thing when you get on the street. But that's what was on my mind. I hope the volume of the rain is okay. Maybe you can tell me. I actually put together a loop this time to put almost 45 minutes of rain in one track. And that's actually on my SoundCloud. So you can now listen to 45 minutes of it. And maybe that's the perfect amount of time to relax or fall asleep. And there's also some ambient music, about 15 minutes, that you may have heard at the beginning. And I've also put that up so you can enjoy it. Links are in the channel description. Oh, some accidental roughage introduced. Just gonna add a little bit of variability to the sky. Maybe I'll do that with like maybe a little loud? Okay. Let me bring the volume back a little bit. There we go. Okay. Some dust in the air. Soften some of these contours back here a little bit. I think tonight probably want to have a little bit more definition in what I'm painting. But you know me, it's not going to be too much definition. Unless somebody tells me to draw a camel or something. You know, I have a very talented artist working on giving me a little persona so you can see me. In just a few weeks, that'll be here. And I was giving her some input. Him, her, them. I guess I don't really know. I was giving them some input today about funny faces and stuff that I'd like to be able to make when something ridiculous is happening in chat. Yeah. That's right, I'm gonna go hard. And sometimes it may be soothing and peaceful, and sometimes it'll just be good vibes. May even be funny sometimes. But I think the thing I really want to do is just kind of open it up to having a together time. I don't ever want to be so locked into what I'm doing that I can't enjoy what's going on. Even if that means we just paint a big Oscar the Grouch or something. That sounds fun to me. Okay. I'm gonna put some other shapes in here, maybe where there's some near ground. Objects. Very fuzzy right now. Just the way I like it. Just like you're just opening new eyes and seeing something for the first time. You're not really sure where you are yet. Maybe you've had a bad trip. I don't know. Let's just put some things in here. maybe we're on kind of a vantage point so we can see things. Yeah, Brosker mentioned at some point maybe I'll be able to add some custom emojis and it'll just be chaos. Okay. I guess I should have set the expectation now that it's not just going to be ASMR. Who knows, maybe at some point we'll just play some symphonic metal. Or some desert vibes music or something. Let's add some more white in some of these areas. Maybe there's some minerals or something trapped in the ground where some evaporation happened. Members of Brosker descend upon us with his glory. Yes. Yes. For those who don't know, Brosker is Brown Oscar the Grouch. Prior to growing chia seeds on his terracotta flesh, he's just brown. And I own one of these and I'm excited to grow chia seeds on it. But right now it's just gracing my home as this kind of a cursed Oscar. Very proud of my Brosker. Alright, let's step this up a little bit. Hit it with the charcoal before we hit it with some other more defined brushes. So the light, I guess, is coming from kind of this general area, which tells me maybe I should go ahead and put a bright sort of a spot, maybe a little bit more yellow right here. Yes, I am a proud owner of a Brosker now. I had almost forgotten that it was going to arrive, and then it did. And it was a joyous event in this house. Yes, it was a rescue. This Brosker was unfortunately left homeless. And I had to do a good deed. You know. This almost looks like some place maybe out in Utah or maybe Nevada. I guess I'd be most familiar with Nevada. I've never been to Utah. Only seen pictures of Utah. And but I've been to Nevada a few times, several times out. I've been camping out there, and I've been out to the Mojave, and I've seen a few other deserts internationally, and enjoyed them all tremendously. I really do love the desert. Mm. Patrolling the Mojave. Make me wish for a nuclear winter. It made me think that I wondered how much it would really change if things went fallout on the wasteland. Full fallout mode. And I bet you it would get a lot more crowded. I did go out with family and patrolled the desert for rocks with a big magnet and a Geiger counter, actually, because you never know when you're going to run across some deposit of something washed out in a stream. And there's subtle variations out there. But mostly we were looking for meteorites. Never found any. I found a lot of really cool rocks. And found a mastodon tooth or some similar organism. It was interesting enough that we actually turned it over to the parks for their museum because it was very intact. And that was in a stream bed. Yeah. It probably wasn't a mastodon. I don't really think that those were in this region, but it was a related species. For sure. So in the distance, shadows would be more colored by the dust in the air and particulates, so they would look very similar to the walls of these formations. But closer up, there would be a little bit more hard shadow. And you'd see more details. So we could add a little bit of red in here to kind of indicate that. There's some variations here, and we'll turn this into bands and things once I kind of just throw a palette down. Indications of maybe some areas where light isn't hitting hardly at all. Little spots of erosion and things like that, nooks and crannies. some more reflective areas, maybe deposits or water are reflecting. Maybe there's a dry riverbed here. Feel very Bob Ross, just calling out the features as I paint them. Let's be a little bit more bold. Start working on some of these details in here. Doing some vertical strokes. Give the walls a little bit of substance. Second Bob Ross confirmed, yes, except I'll probably be getting a lot of my skills on the job here. Just practicing. Maybe there's an indication of some low-lying features, maybe a couple of rocks or something down here. Quick zoom out. Take a look. Maybe an edge here. I just want to make sure that there's something under the reflective areas, because those definitely indicate that something is there. Something is out there. Maybe they're a djinn haunting this place. Maybe this is their home. They have entire cities here, and you just can't see them as we do. I didn't even think to ask for an afro wig on my live 2D. Maybe that's upcoming in retainer for this artist who's doing my model. Lighten the color of my dark spaces here, my shadows a little bit as we cross into the distance. As the dust in the air tends to make everything a little bit more red. Eventually, at some point, you only really can tell that there's a reflection there. And stop being able to see anything vertical unless it really stands out. Or horizontal, I should say, reflective. So maybe there is a couple little spots where there's enough of a surface to produce that reflection. Cliff walls, things like that. And even there are variations. I swear if I had Bob's afro, I would know exactly what I'm doing at all times. Depending on how far away the perspective is, Yeah, could add a rattlesnake. Unless you're going for the completely barren look. Oh no. I suppose a rattlesnake would have to be very close to us. So maybe we'll give an opportunity for that snake. Maybe there's a bit of a foreground. After all, we don't want to get too close to the edge, right? Interesting choice to have rain in the desert in the background. For the music, for the sounds. I hadn't even thought about that choice, but I didn't have any desert ambiance ready. And I'm already going on this, so let's just enjoy the magic of a rain shower in the desert. I'll get to that snake in a moment. Or maybe now. Rattlesnake is going to have brown, dark brown coloration, and maybe he's in a little coil down here. So I'll start making a little coil, and there'll be a little snake here. I suppose the rattlesnake wouldn't be lifting its head up, it would have its rattle up like this. But the snake is a little curious. So let's give him some highlights. A little more definition. And we're just painting on one layer because it's fun. Let's get rid of the little camel ear. Silly snake, it thinks it's a camel. I think I need to look at a rattlesnake. Let me find one real quick. And I'll share it. Hang on. Let's find a good picture of a rattlesnake. I kind of like this one. Let me drop that here. And let's add that up here. Image. Okay. Alright. I have a little rattlesnake up in the corner now, so I can look at that. And say, what do I want that rattlesnake to look like? Let's pull it up here so that I can see it a little bit better. I know what I'll do. I'll just drop him right on here. On the the canvas. Then I can just pull that down here. I can remove that from my streaming, because now we got them right on the canvas. Okay. Hello, Mr. Rattlesnake. Let's make you a little smaller. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and actually pick colors up from the rattlesnake. Maybe some of these bands. We can flush some of them out. The light parts. Like this. Kind of have to see where the snake is here. And there's fewer and fewer light parts as you get towards the back where the rattle is. And there'll be a little rattle here. I have family that live in the desert, and they have encountered many rattlesnakes while they've been out there. They live out in the Mojave, actually. They're pretty cute danger noodles. Yeah, they are. They're pretty cute when they're just snooping around, and they're not a danger to anyone. Unfortunately, my relatives have dogs out there, so they're often considered to be kind of a threat. But they try to humanely relocate them instead of doing the deed. Because these people are pretty humane. Middle of the body is mostly lighter colored. And just to get a palette down, maybe I'll throw down some other colors here. Goober snake, goober snake, goober. And of course the darker colors. I will surround these brown patches. I think that those dark colors actually make a lot of the snake color, as opposed to just being light and dark. It's got these outlines. The kind of things you see as warning patterns on animals. Bees have them. Anything that wants to mimic a bee has them. I think that's called... I'm trying to remember the different types of mimicry I learned in school. Batesian mimicry. That's what it's called. When an animal mimics a more dangerous animal for some reason, or another animal for some opportunistic reason, it evolved those patterns. There are several snakes that have the same similar patterns. Gopher snakes and stuff. because predators stayed away just a bit more than they otherwise would have. Now I'm drawing kind of a goofy rattlesnake so far, but I think it looks nice. I like it. It says rattlesnake. Let's take a touch more brown in there. Some of these lighter areas. Gooper. Gooper. Snake. Gooper. Gooper. Gooper noodle. Why not? Let's give him some little cute eyes. And flatten his head a little bit more. You got as much in there. Maybe a little tongue. Gotta keep my brush steady. Make all these things a little bit darker as I get a little bolder. This turned into a snake painting exhibition where I learned how to paint a snake. I don't think I've ever painted a snake before. You know, at least not one that was supposed to look realistic. The snake blip happened. Absolute cinema. Snake blip. And snake blip. Alright. Let's do some shading real quick. Get a little bit of shadow in places. That'll help me to define the palette a little bit more. It's amazing how when you just give a little bit of highlight and shadow, like things start to look more three-dimensional and not just like blobs of color. You don't have to fight so much with your shades. In Bleppy Snake. Blep. Let's come wee in on Mr. Snake. Oh, that was the wrong tool. There we go. There is no shame here. Just fun. Now I know what a kind of this dark shade looks like. I'm gonna kind of start filling it in. Except I just remembered I'm painting on my overlay. So I'm gonna merge this down. I was like, why is that shade not coming out the way it looks when I grab it? That's why. And I'm just curious what this looks like when you zoom out. And I guess when you're focusing on the whole picture, it already kind of looks pretty good, but I'm going to make it even better. this snake has become a focus point of this picture. To remember that these form diamonds. I'm going to do some carving here. Carve back some diamonds. And make it look a little more sneaky. And that kind of provides a convenient basis to throw some brown blobs into the middle. They're almost like little bestigons. Yeah, that's one thing that I think I'm pretty good at, is I can paint something up close so that it looks good when I zoom out. Up close it looks really blobby. See, the color I was going for here has these little red hues in the in-between dots. All the little things that your subconscious mind looks and says, danger noodle, when it sees it. Almost like when you see a cop car, suddenly you just kind of go, oh, you just notice it after a while. Immediately, I better slow down. Or, when you have to run from the scene of a crime, Or a sordid past. Just kidding. Or am I? That rain track just ended. I think I'm going to go ahead and just put on this ambient track. So some of these, I made a bunch of different ambient tracks for VR worlds that I had built. I used to really love making very surreal, lost type of places, or strange, almost scary places. And I developed kind of a reputation for doing it. And it was funny because I always thought of them as being places that you'd visit once and kind of go, that's cool, and then you never go back again. But I was surprised to find out that people were just hanging out in them. And one day when I was going and doing some work on a world, and I was about to start on it, and I noticed that there was an instance running This was in a platform called Old Space. And I was curious, like, who was running the instant, like, who was in there. And I met this person who was just wandering around, basically a big moonscape around the edge of a crater with all these little craters all around. And I said hello, and this person said, "Oh, do you like to come here too?" I said, "Well, I created this place." And they kind of lit up and they were like, "Wow, you know, I come here like all the time just to clear my head." This absolute empty moonscape with like a big weird structure in the middle. And they were like, "No, I love this place." And I was so enchanted. I was just like, "Oh my God." And I come to find out that people did really appreciate the stuff I was doing. Because it was just different. I love finding out that people just are out there just appreciating what you do sometimes. And you may never know how it is that you affect people's lives. Kind of lost my pattern here. Yapping too much. Or maybe not yapping enough. Well, thank you, dude. I'm glad. It sure is a lot of fun to do this. I look forward to it. And when I originally wrote this part that you're listening to, it was a big chamber underground. With a big, strange door. And I remember I had kind of a trick. If you touched something, you would get a really, like, terrifying vision would happen. Because I'm not always safe. Like this snake, maybe. It has a nature of its own. Maybe this snake has lived for thousands of years too. Who knows? Speaking of snake, let's take another look near its head. I see some of the blobs emerging. make some of those blobs merge. Mm-hmm. Don't have to be too crazy with the detail here, but let's give him a little dark tongue. And take another look. He's got little pits. And the jaw is low. And a very flat head. And maybe comes out just a bit more. Where do those stripes come to? I think they just kind of come back here. I mean, look, I have a couple of other rattlesnakes open. And if you'll pardon me for a moment, I'll go and check out my references. Ah, I see. You don't see, but I see. He's definitely going to have some larger swells here. For venom pouches. Danger noodle. Putting in the work, huh? Just clean up a few things here and then take a step back. See how much we really have to do. gonna do another overlay so that we can add a little bit more. Do I want to do this with this or with this? And now we'll go very dark. In some of these spots. Really? Oop, that was a little too much. Shadow this out. It's interesting that when I go over in black, it turns that red. So let's merge that. A little snake. Turn off our reference. Now, let's put a little bit more work into the ground. For this, I'm going to turn the opacity down so I can do more sort of scattered texture work. Pull in some of these darks a little bit. And find a good shade. And I'll pick that color. Give it a little bit of roughing up. See, I'm all doing one layer, so I have to paint kind of around the snake, but some lighter. And then I'll do kind of this number. And then maybe start depositing a couple of rocky little shadows, or I'll start putting the tops of rocks. Just blobs right now to kind of mark where those stones would be. Clean up this edge a little bit more. Decide if maybe I want more reddish hue for the tops of these rocks. come back and adjust it in a second. Add shadows, and the same sort of thing that I was doing. So I'm more or less just marking out where they are at the moment. And I'll start to sculpt them into looking more like natural little rocks. And there are also some depressions around, because how would you have rocks if it wasn't chipping off of something, right? And so we'll do that too. Once you commit to a foreground, you commit to a few different parts. A few different steps you have to do, so it's not too distracting, but it's also convincing. One of them might be that, of course, you have to have a shadow where you might have a depression, but first you have to paint on the correct layer, because overlay is not going to cut it. In fact, I'll just go ahead and merge that. Didn't quite like how that turned out. So really, the rock would be sheeting off at some point towards the edge. So it'd be hard to really see those layers unless there was a shadow, a back-facing shadow near you. So I'm making a little bit of an executive decision here to define the edge of this cliff by giving it a little bit of contrast in some ways. I'll be pulling in this dark area a little bit. Don't really have to make everything defined, because that's not how it really looks when you're in a place. But I probably do want to make this region a little bit redder to indicate it's maybe a layer just underneath this sheet that's in front of it. I hope you don't mind that music looping. It isn't a very long track, or I'm just going on a really long time. I need to maybe work out a better player situation. Actually, a more ideal thing to do right now is to go to overlay, since we want to give color to things, but we don't necessarily want to disturb our objects and textures so much. Oh, there's a little sloppy there. I think it looks good with like red in the foreground. Maybe that's a good way to give this contrast. A little more splotch. Because that's how rocks really look. In fact, I'm on an overlay. I can do that by just erasing. Some rusty iron in the soil. And then zoom out. Run out to the sides with it. Do a little bit more shadow. Develop a crack or something. This shelf of chipped rock. Our snake friend is very happy to be here. Probably gonna go catch a jerboa mouse or something. Oh, see, forgot I was on the overlay. Let's merge that. And then come back here. Give this cliff edge a little bit more interesting of a shape. My opacity is still down, so it'll take more strokes, but it'll be more forgiving. Which I think is perfect for doing this. See, if I was wanting to get this done in a hurry, maybe I would do this on another layer, but you know, I'm just being very spontaneous right now. Alright. So got a little foreground, and I kind of lost my taste for adding more detail here. Like a terrible artist, I'm just going to conveniently cut it off. But we have a snake, and that's all that matters. And for the first time, I'm going to save. Let's save this as finished.kra. Alright. Don't have a lot of time left. Let's see. I guess it's worth sticking around though. Making this look really cool. Still working with that half opacity. Maybe I should pull that up. Keep driving in details back here. I think I can work pretty good with the details here. Probably get quite a bit in before the end of the stream. See what I can do. and just, that's a little too much. Let's bring the opacity down a little bit. Darken some of these areas a little bit. Can really produce some physical structures, places for Jinn to hide, surprise people. Although, I think the ones around here probably want to be left alone. For the most part. And I'm working way back away from the actual level of detail so that I can get a better feel before I move in of exactly what I'll be detailing. Snake done, stream done. Snake. Yeah, snake. Dude, snake. Get used to these days of reasonable accessories and pictures, because soon somebody's gonna ask for a pineapple and all kinds of things. And there'll have to be like a democracy in here. How many other people want the pineapple? Okay, we're putting a pineapple in. I guess these streams could get quite long. Saturday, crazy day streams. Palm trees and an antelope. And a man with a cigar. Brosker. You know, who knows what will end up in there. I have to be mindful of the darkness of the shadows here. This almost looks like a little house. Let's ruin it. I kind of want to do some highlight. Maybe even bring in some reds in here, like the rock we have in the foreground. Make some bands look more red than others. Baby bands of iron. Who knows? I've seen desert cliffs and walls that look purple in places. Really amazing. Or green because of the copper. That sounds pretty fun too, doesn't it? Copper would be right about there. Maybe there's a outwash of copper. I've been to a place out in the Mojave that was just like this, with this like copper substances, like copper laden minerals, just out on the ground just like this. But it looks a little strange for this composition. So I think what I'm gonna do is merge back and fade that just a bit so it doesn't look quite so dramatic. Or maybe much more than that, just so you just barely notice it. Just seemed a little bit too alien. Give me just 1 second. Need some water. I do like this strange green color though. I almost feel like you could add that to parts. I'm still working at half opacity, so I'm working more with the red at the moment. So I want to give more definition to some of these parts. I almost think what I want to do is add kind of spell ring around some of these wide areas where maybe some iron-rich rocks washed up during a flood and are staining the ground during a particularly intense bout of thunderstorms before it all dries up again. I think this green looks too strange. I'm gonna give just hints of maybe a little bit. Put some places where pools may have formed. Keep working in some details. Sometimes I get bored with a spot. Rip the color. Killed by aura, that's right. You can leave a little bit. It's kind of interesting concept of when you see things in nature, they defy sort of the kind of sensibilities that you would put into an artistic piece. Because when you're doing art, you're thinking about where the eye goes and things like that, and balance and all those things. And when you are doing a painting of like a place, you want to select the angle that you paint from to produce that artificially. And you may take liberties with some of the things that are there to make them look more balanced in the things like that. But when you're doing this, you get fussy with things and you're like, no, 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 no. I'm the god of this landscape. I'm going to make it the way I want it to be. I'm going to make it perfect. And who knows, maybe by somebody's definition you made it look worse. I don't know. Just dinky thoughts. So this far in the distance, we're just indicating things a little bit. Maybe there's maybe there's a cave here or something. So we indicate more shadows. Excuse me, burped a little bit. Give some structure to these rocks back here. I like this orange in here. I'm gonna put a little bit more in. This is looking a little too fuzzy. Clean it up a little. I'm even gonna go 100 here. Pick up the pace just a bit. I think it's pretty safe in here. Yeah. Almost looks very alien. Besides our snake, there's no sign of life anywhere. Looks like Mars. A snake on Mars. Martian snake. See, my problem now is that I've added so much detail over here. I have to add it here. It's in the same sort of depth zone. I just realized there's this awful streak right there. You know, get rid of it. Bye. Bye-bye streak. And we'll put this here. And here. And here. So let's get some dark colors and define this a little bit more. So that it seems kind of balanced. Decide, what am I looking at here? recess. A bit more dark in here. And a bit more dark over here. An edge. It's probably kind of dim in here. Definitely dim in here. This orange is almost unnatural. Knock it down a bit. Indicate more of the tops of these. Just a little bit. A snake. We got a snake to Mars. We did it, Reddit. I don't think that snake would be very happy sitting on Mars. Probably not very breathy. Fairly uncomfortable. Spell out this ledge a little bit more. Make it a little bit more interesting. Just a bit. I actually really like the idea of having a few more details in here. But I'm also seeing kind of a problem in balance because this looks more blocky. So I'll do some foolish tricks here with it. also the opportunity here to go back and do more shadows. Give it a little bit more dimension. Although there was a little bit too much shadow here. Maybe. Balance that. It looks a little bit less flat that way. And some highlight. I like the color, but I was just not aiming very well with it. And again, I'm using overlay to do this. If I make a mistake, I can just erase the overlay like this. And I don't actually touch the layer below. So a lot of the texture just stays there. Yep. Not aimed very well. Makes these rocks look more baked, scorched. But I promise you that I am not baked. And let's go ahead and do this. Some little highlights out here. A couple of spots that just give it some extra color. Maybe even come back and do a little bit of red again. You know what, it looks dazzling as if you do just a little bit of purple overlay. Almost like maybe you're seeing some weird light effects that's a little too much. In the shadows, some sort of signature touches that say this is art. It's not just what you're seeing, it's an impression. And then I'll even go back over that with some orange. Where it's actually lit on the walls. And that makes it look really moody. Even to our snake a little bit. I'll just keep adding this color until I ruin the entire painting. Because it's so much fun, but I'm on an overlay so I can just erase back if I don't like it. But I think it looks really good actually, splashing this color around. It brings more balance and yellow to the tops. Now it's getting really moody. Oh, yeah, get rid of that. There you go. And even more like a fuchsia almost here in this area. Just for fun. Actually I don't like that so much. That's better. Kind of want to miss the snake here. So it stands out a little bit more. And we'll keep doing this in these shadows in the near ground. And then merge. So I can go back and unfuzzy this just a bit. Oh, there we are. Almost, I think, to a stopping place here. Oh, excuse me. This one was really fun. I liked this. I like painting the snake. Not so yappy on this stream, I noticed. Let's see. Let's give this a little bit more like that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I appreciate you being here. I always appreciate you being here. And to everybody else who is going to watch this later, I appreciate you being here too, even if we're separated by time. Passage of time is, after all, an illusion, created by our minds. As we assemble our consciousness simultaneously, not to get all political, Just deciding on the very last few things that I think will catch the eye a little bit too much if they're not balanced or if they exist at all. Mm-hmm. Since there are some dark caves on the left, I kind of want to put some dark spots on the right before I finish up here. Some really darker shadows. Make shapes look a little bit more authentic. That's about the darkest that I want to go right there, so I pick that color. Connect this a bit, as I find that those are standing out a little bit too much. Come back in here. Unfuzz it just a bit. And finally, let's do one more overlay. On the whole thing. Let's take a yellow and just tint. Very low opacity, very big. Bring together some of these areas in a dreamlike way, especially if they are in the distance. Maybe even indicate a lens effect of some kind here, and then dark. Now that I have more details in here, I can see better where I want shadows to deepen. Just back and forth all the time with these things. And then you do a few steps to sort of bring things together. just highlight our snake a bit. And then we'll draw a huge nuclear cloud right here. No, I don't think we'll do that. However, for the framing of this, I am thinking I want to cut the canvas. So let's do this. Let's take and let's go up to 3650. Actually, you know what? That might be just a really obnoxious. Alright, calculator. Let's go. 40, 96, divided by 4, times 3. Give us 3072. That'll give us a ratio. No, that's a little bit too much. 4096 divided by 8 is 512 times 7, 3584. You know, I don't know why I'm doing it this way. 84. I could also do ratio. Yeah, you know what? I think that looks good. I think it just looks nice and third Z. And then say file save. Just for fun, because you know we always love to do this at the end. First, let me merge this. Merge. And we'll make sure we add in our fake snake here, right next to him, so he has a friend. No, we'll get rid of that. And remove. And flatten image. Okay. You know what I want to do is I want to add a border. So let's shrink by 50. Too much. Let's select. No, you know what? Let's just leave it. I take that back. We'll just leave it like this. Let's remove that. Let's play with the filters just for a second. Just play with it for fun. And we'll undo our settings. This is like some kind of definite disaster. This is, we might have just walked out into the desert from somewhere really dark. This is just completely alien. But of course, I think I like it just the way it was. Do you want to hail Caesar? You want to join Caesar's Legion out here? And of course, one of my favorite things to do is posterize, you know that. So we're gonna do some looks like a crappy video game, It actually looks like maybe some graphic from Fallout 2 or something. The original. Alright. I'm gonna save this. And maybe I do want a border, just a very thin one though. Let's do that. Select, shrink, 20. That should be good. And then when I fill that region, oh, it looks good. I like that. Okay. Save. Export. Yep. I've already got that saved elsewhere. Say OK. And now let's take a look at what we've done in the big screen. I think it looks beautiful. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Or today, or whenever you're watching this. Take care of yourself. This is Sora, and I'll see you next time.